We're talking about burnout today. It's obviously a big problem. And is the solution really to just find a new job, or are there steps we can take to renew our energy and interest? Here to answer that question is Wendy Lynne, a Redmond-based life coach, and she helps people who are stuck or scared to make a change. Good morning, Wendy. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Good morning, Kayla. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Okay, let's start off with this question. Burnout is obviously huge right now. The pandemic has changed a lot of things. People working from home or now going back to the office, lots of things going on. It's been really stressful. Work conditions have been stressful. So is burnout why so many of us are actually deciding to change jobs?
Yeah, burnout is a real thing, and that is why people are starting to change jobs. But as an executive or recruiter in the past, I know that employers don't want employees that are disgruntled, unhappy, unsatisfied, right? They're looking for people that they're looking for people that are at the top of their game. And so really that's where I come in. I help people change their mindset so that they're leaving their jobs for a better opportunity, personal growth, not because they're unhappy.
So if we're talking mainly mindset, that seems like something where you could, you can change that without having to change your job. But how do we know if it's something just with our mindset or if we're truly unhappy with our job?
Yeah, that's a great question. My experience is it's really about external versus internal satisfaction. If you think it's your job's fault that you're unhappy, then you move somewhere else and you're expecting to be happy, right? And some external source is going to make you happy. And what I recommend before you jump to another job, you really work on taking personal responsibility for your own happiness. And I believe that you can find meaning and purpose no matter what your job. I actually have a friend who's a housekeeper, and he feels a lot of meaning and purpose just bringing cleanliness and order to people's homes, and I love it. And that being said, it is appropriate at times for people to change jobs.
Yeah, and so if, some of the suggestions here are, let's change your mindset, why would anyone decide to change careers?
That's a good question. But what happens, I find, is that when people change their mindset, they actually change, right? So then it is appropriate to change jobs. I also find that, the priorities that you chose a job when you're a teenager change as you get older. Our values, our goals are different. And so it is appropriate at times to change your job. I also find quite a few people take their first job based on safety and security and not taking into account their passions. I actually had a client who was a nurse because her parents said, find a job with financial security. And she was just miserable. She really always wanted to be a writer. So we actually found ways for her to make money and be a writer. She was so happy. And with technology advancing and industries coming and going all the time, it's super important to keep yourself relevant. So sometimes it is appropriate to change job.
And I think that's something that we've all kind of witnessed through the pandemic is, maybe you mentioned someone that's a nurse that wanted to be a writer. The pandemic has put so much more pressure on a lot of different industries, which might encourage people to let's go what I initially wanted to do when I was 17 years old. And they made that decision to go to nursing school or whatever it is. So if someone does decide, hey, I'm going to make this big change, I'm going to do what I want to do, what is some advice that you have for someone taking that big step?
That's really my favorite thing, is challenging people to think out of the box. And I'll give you some tips on how I do that for people. I actually start off with just actually asking people, what's your skills? Write out your skills, and also write out where your interests, what your passions are, and see if we can marry the two. I have a fun example of this. I was working with a software engineer who just loved dogs and loved videography, and he came up with an idea to board dogs and take them out on these great activities, videotape them, and then sent this wonderful video daily of capturing the dogs doing these fun activities, and people just loved it. And then I have another client, she's so cute. She was always fascinated with sex. And so I said, well, have you ever thought of being a sex therapist? And she's like, I never even heard of a sex therapist. And now she's studying to be a sex therapist, and I was so enthusiastic and excited. I also ask people to try to get their friends or their family to identify what are your unique strengths, what are your superpowers, right? And personally, my husband was always saying, God, you have so many intuitive powers. And I realized, oh, this is something I could teach people. So now I help people learn how to tap in and access their own intuition. And it's very hard to see that for yourself. So other people see things that you don't see. And finally, one of the most important things is to do informational interviews. And literally what that means is find someone that's doing what you want to do and go interview them. And personally, when I was in college, I thought I was going to law school, talked to some attorneys, and realized this wasn't for me, and ended up pursuing advertising, marketing, became an executive recruiter, and then went on to be a coach.
A personal example that you have right there. That's absolutely awesome, figuring out what you want to do as you kind of venture through life, which is so awesome. Wendy Lynne for us this morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me.